Now, coming to Woodward Sports. Woodward and Main Street. The Woodward Sports Network Detroit Lions Show. Let's go! Catch Gabrielle Dee Phillips, Matt Broder, and Terry Foster for all the latest news on your Detroit Lions every week. Only on the Woodward Sports Network YouTube channel and woodwardsports.com.
Good morning and happy Lions playoff game day. The day has come. The second playoff game this season down at Ford Field. The Bucs are coming to town to play the Lions at 3 p.m. And thank you so much for kicking off your game day with us. We are Woodward and Main Street. I'm Gabrielle Dee Phillips, Matt Broder, and we will have Terry Foster joining us shortly from Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
He had to go and check out how they were doing over there.
I just want to make sure the
Matt
Rams
Stafford.
fans, make sure the Rams fans are okay after last week.
Yeah.
There've been a lot of chirping on social media. We sent Terry there to make sure.
Go and handle the business.
Yes, yes.
Fantastic. But we have plenty to get into on this game day with the Bucs coming to town. A lot has happened leading up to this game, Matt. So let's get right into it. First of all, you can't talk about this game without talking about C.J. Gardner-Johnson and C.J. Gardner-Johnson being C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Exactly.
Talking a lot of trash, as he normally does, which is one of the reasons that we wanted him back on the field, is because of his grit and because of his spice that he brings to the team. But will this backfire? This week, he decided to call out Baker Mayfield, said they have a lot of great pieces on that team, but is he a good enough quarterback to be leading them? So what is your take on this? And is this going to give Baker and the Bucs that extra oomph that they need to bring out a win against the Lions today?
So Gabby, it could.
Yeah.
It could, and that's the worry. I think that's what maybe caught some Lions fans by surprise, or maybe the only reason this has turned into a controversy. But no, this is two players, both Ceedy Duce, so both C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Baker Mayfield, being themselves. Like, this is almost to be expected. And if we really want to trace this back, I mean, I'm not going to say it started with Tampa, but Antoine Winfield Jr. did start off the chirping after they beat the Eagles. He's talking about going on a revenge tour, and we're going to have a great time with them, the team that they're going to be playing. This was before they knew it was going to be the Lions. So, hey, for Ceedy to fire back a little bit, and he referenced the receiving core. He did include Russell Gage, which is a wide receiver that hasn't played for Tampa this year. That gave Baker a little bit of ammo to fire back. But then on the end of it, Ceedy Duce was able to come back and remind Baker what he's done to the Bucs the last two games, which was with Tom Brady at quarterback. And Ceedy Duce had 2 interceptions and 2 big wins against them in 2021. So, to me, I'm okay with it. This is Ceedy Duce being himself. This is how he gets energy. This is how he gets going. But I know what Lions fans, what maybe some football fans rooting against the Bucs, they just don't want Baker, an underdog, a gritty type of player, to have just a little more edge, which maybe that gave it to him.
We're going to talk about the grit plenty in this show, and I want to talk about it on the Lions side of the ball, because last week, everyone in the national media was picking against the Lions. We saw so many people, analyst after analyst, pick against the Lions. Everyone was going with the Rams. This week has completely flipped the script, and everyone is picking the Lions to win this game. Obviously, they're also favored going into today's game. Does that worry you? Are you a little superstitious that everyone picked against the Lions last week, and that's kind of where they thrive, is when they have something to prove? Or is that just superstition talking?
I think that could just be superstition talking. And I'm a superstitious guy, so I get where that's coming from. But we got to look at the man in charge of this team, Dan Campbell. And he's had these guys, this entire team, ready just about every single game where there's been something on the line, there's been a big storyline, it's a primetime game, or they're the underdogs. Yes, they've thrived off being the underdogs, but to me, Dan Campbell and this team, they're not going to get bullied. Like they're not bullies themselves, but they're not going to get bullied, so there's not going to be any surprises to them. They're also, when there's an inferior opponent, and I don't mean that to disrespect the Bucs. Lions are favored. I believe they're the better team. Anything can happen today. But when you're favored, when you're playing an inferior opponent, when you have that going to work attitude, not to reference the 04 Pistons, but when you have that going to work attitude, this is a business trip. This is a business game at home. They're welcoming Tampa to their home field with the home crowd ready to explode because everyone remember, this is now the last home game of the season. The winner of this game goes to San Francisco. Yeah, so I'm not worried. This team is going to show up. If they get beat, they get beat, but it's not because they're not ready. It's not because the moment's too big or they get bullied. It's because they beat themselves. I truly believe that. I believe this Detroit Lions team is ready to go. And a team like Tampa, it's despite being hot right now and going on a win streak, they're not going to surprise the Lions. Do you feel the same way, Gabby?
I feel the same way, and I really like what Knox Brand 1 has to say in the chat. We will always be underdogs until we win the chip, which is very true. They still always have something to prove. Obviously, Tampa Bay is coming in once again. They're coming up against a team that has more playoff experience, more Super Bowl experience. You look at their team, and yes, they're missing Tom Brady from that championship, but they still have a lot of those key pieces that made that happen that I think people are writing off.
Yes. They shouldn't. They shouldn't. Since 2020, this Bucs team.
I knew you would have the facts.
I got some facts for you, Gabby. This is playoff stats. So maybe the regular season stats don't really paint the picture for how good this team is or how good they can be. But in the playoffs, with I think 9 starters or 9 players from that Super Bowl winning team, this Tampa Bay Bucs are first in the NFL in playoff takeaways with 16, first in the NFL in forced fumbles and fumble recovery, second in the NFL in playoff interceptions, first in the NFL playoff QB hits, second in tackles for loss, and third in sacks. Those are all stats that paint a picture of a defense that they show up when the lights are on, when the spotlight is on them, they play. And getting takeaways, that's something that Detroit, that Jared Goff and this offense, they need to worry about. That's a key to this game, not turning the ball over. And when you have a defense like this, a veteran defense with playmakers all over the field, that's something that Ben Johnson and Jared Goff really need to take into consideration when they're game planning, or when they've been game planning this matchup and how they make decisions quickly. Tampa's going to blitz them. They're going to try to force those takeaways to keep the ball out of the hands of the Lions offense. It's Jared Goff's job to avoid that.
And it's the fans' job to avoid falling into a rut in this game. You had mentioned it earlier. Now that we have an answer as to the winner of this game will be traveling to play the 49ers. So this will be the Lions' last home playoff game. They showed out last week.
Oh, so much.
Time and time again. I think it was around 136 was
like 133.
133. So they're very close to hitting that decimal. I'm still hoping it can happen this season because I think it is completely possible to beat the Chiefs and that decimal, but this is the time for the Lions fans to show out. You now know that you're not saving any of your energy for another home playoff game. How can you send all of your energy into this game? How can you force additional timeouts in this game like you did last? That was such a game difference maker that the coaches noted, that the players noted. The Lions fans have to show up once again today. And do you think that they will be able to take that next step this week from last week?
Yes. We need this Lions crowd, this Ford Field crowd to do it. We saw how much of an impact it made last week. Like you said, those 2 timeouts that they forced in the second half were on the crowd. That was a situation where Sean McVay and the Rams, they couldn't get the play. They couldn't get the communication in time. Yeah. So this Lions crowd forced them to use a timeout that came in absolutely crucial at the end of the game when under 2 minutes the Lions were able to ice the clock. That's something they need to do again today. Actually, that's something they did great in Tampa Bay in the first week. I believe in the fourth quarter leading up to the last few minutes, they had a drive of almost 7 minutes, just keeping the ball out of the hands of a Tampa Bay offense that, although they didn't put many points on the board, they were starting to threaten near the end of that game. And anytime a guy like Baker Mayfield gets some momentum, especially in the fourth quarter, you never know how a game can finish. So it's important for the Lions to control that ball, control the time of possession, and a lot of that has to do with the crowd. Remember what Alex Anzalone said last week when Baker Mayfield is going into the huddle. That's when we need the crowd to be the absolute loudest. maybe you pull back a little bit when they come out of the huddle so Anzalone can direct that defense, make sure everyone's in the right spot. But as soon as they get up to that line, again, it better be the loudest it is in Ford Field. It is 100% an advantage. We need this to be 12 on 11. This is the crowd. This is the Detroit Lions in that Ford Field crowd against the Buccaneers. And this is a crowd that took over Tampa Bay in week 6.
Yeah.
So I'm fully expecting this crowd to show up. I just need everyone who's watching, if you're going to Ford Field, better be loud.
And
all game.
I'm fully expecting that Tampa Bay fans are not going to be willing to brave the cold.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that they're going to brave the cold. I don't think that they're going to come up here. I have a couple of friends that are in Tampa that have thought about coming up here for the game and said, no, we're not going to come up for a playoff game because it's too cold in Detroit to even come up for the day, to even come up for one single game. And I think it said, I saw somewhere online, even Woodward Sports might have tweeted it out, that 98% of the fans for this game are expected to be Detroit Lions fans, which is
let's go
100% obvious. And I think the contrasting colors of the red and blue, you'd be able to see the Tampa Bay fans stick out like a sore thumb. But I think the weather here will even deter the Tampa Bay fans even more from coming into the Lions.
Yeah, you know what they say, it's so cold in the D. Like, this is an intimidating place for some people to come up. And if you look at the ticket prices, which has also been a topic, a storyline all week, near the average ticket price over $1,000, maybe over $1,100.
Yeah.
And I know that's thrown a lot of people off, worried that, it's just rich people going to the game or only people who can afford it. They're not going to be the true Lions fans that are going to be the loudest. But I actually think it's the reverse. Like, in terms of supply and demand, the fans who got these tickets were season ticket holders, and then they were Lions fans who were obviously first to put down a deposit for Lions playoff tickets when they thought this could be possible. So it just means no one's selling their tickets. The less people that sell, the higher that price goes up. So, the fans who are selling are the ones that are willing to give up their ticket, if not for just an exorbitant price, because they're not as, I don't mean to take a shot at them, not as strong a Lions fan. So everyone at this game is invested in, whether it's financially or historically, in this Lions team. I expect it to be loud for that very reason.
100%. And it's not just Lions fans that are invested in this Lions team. We've seen over this week how fans across the nation are now choosing the Lions as their second team. Their team might not be in the playoffs anymore, so they're jumping on the Lions bandwagon, and I don't think that has ever happened in my lifetime. I've heard plenty of people talk about it, and even Terry talk about the fact that you had to always choose the second team being a Lions fan. The Lions were never the backup team for anyone because they never made it far enough to become somebody's backup team. So now you have support from across the nation rooting for these underdogs, that underdog mentality, because they still have not won a chip. So they're continuing along, and I think having that extra oomph behind them is going to help them even more. Yeah,
especially with these primetime games, there's been more eyes on the Lions this year. And it started with that win against Kansas City in week 1, where this Lions team really showed the nation that they're here to ball. They're here to play, and they're not intimidated by anything. If there's any team to be intimidated by, it's Kansas City week 1 at Arrowhead. And they went and showed what kind of tough team they were, just how that game ended up. I believe it was 21-20. It was just a tough, gritty game. I think fans around the world, especially around the country, they love to see that. And whether they're officially America's team or not, they're definitely Detroit's team. And I know that seems a little counterintuitive to say, but they fit so perfectly with this city. The way, and I described them not being bullied. It's a business-like attitude. That's what the city's built off of. And wherever you're from in the state of Michigan, you've just been able to see this team. They've been resilient all year. They've faced injuries. They've been underdogs. This is a team. Last week you said everyone picked the Rams. Everyone said Matthew Stafford is going to come in. But no, this team showed up when the lights were the brightest. And I honestly expect them to do the same today, whether they play next week, going into next season. As long as Dan Campbell's at the helm, I think they're going to be a difficult team to beat for years to come. They're going to be ready to go at all phases of the season for many, many years. We don't
want to get too far ahead of ourselves.
I know.
But we'll be right back. In the next segment, we're going to cover the return, the Lions return, and what it means this week to be a Detroit Lions fan and the keys to the game today. Tune in.
Woodward Sports' own Tom Mazaway and Sam Stick Day will be hosting our Lions postgame show after every Lions game all season long. Tune into the Woodward Sports YouTube channel for his hot-off-the-press takes, game analysis, and Kool-Aid sipping celebrations. You won't want to miss it. Join Maz, Stick, and special guests each week immediately following every Lions game, exclusively on the WSN YouTube channel. Brace yourselves, Detroit. As the sun begins to set, two of Woodward Sports' brightest young stars will be taking the mic for a brand new show. Woodward Nights with Broder and Broder. The dog days in Detroit are over, and the boys are unleashed. Join in on the banter and hop on the bandwagon of the #1 night show on the internet. Tune into the Woodward Sports YouTube channel every weeknight from 8 to 10 p.m. Woodward Nights with Broder and Broder.
Welcome back. This is Woodward and Main Street, your Woodward Sports Network Lions Insider Show. I'm Gabrielle Dee Phillips, alongside me, Matt Broder, Terry Foster joining us shortly, and we are brought to you by Les Stanford. Thank you so much, Les Stanford, for making this show possible week in, week out, and we're so glad to be covering Lions playoff football. I said it this morning over on my social media, and I'm going to say it here again. Doesn't it feel great to feel great about being a Detroit Lions fan?
Yes.
Gosh, like when was the last time that you felt this great about being a Lions fan?
Never. I've always been proud to be a Lions fan, but now we have something for real to root for. This is a real team. It's January 21st, and we're talking about playoff football, not mock drafts, not who are the Lions going to select and who are the free agents that they're going to go get. We're talking playoff football. They're one step away from the NFC Championship, 2 steps away from a Super Bowl berth. Knock on wood.
Matt continues to get ahead of himself. But we're going to get into what's at hand today. So there is someone joining the Lions today that we haven't seen in some time, and that is James Houston, expected to play out at Ford Field today. So what can we expect out of him this first game back? What have you been gathering down at Allen Park this week with his return?
A whole lot of energy. He's going to come in, whether it's 1 snap or 20 snaps, he's going to come in firing. This is a kid, a man, a young player who's ready to go. He wants to be out there so bad. He wants to make a difference on this defense on the opposite side of Aidan Hutchinson, help out this pass rush on a Tampa Bay Bucs team that's pretty good at third down. So I don't know for sure how many snaps we're going to see him. My estimate may only be between 10 and 15 snaps.
Really?
But when he's out there, it's going to be go get the quarterback, and that's it. At the beginning of the season, they were messing around. I don't want to say messing around. They were developing him into a more versatile linebacker, a Sam linebacker, playing multiple spots. At this point in the season, what James Houston did at the end of last season, which is just going and getting the quarterback, I bet you that's what they're going to have him do today. When you're in, you got one guy to go after, that's Baker Mayfield. Figure out how to get there, and then come off the field, get a rest, make sure your fibula is good, and we'll get you back out there the next opportunity.
You hated to see him go down when he did, because he was kind of finding his hot streak, kind of finding his footing, and that's something that Aidan Hutchinson has done over the last couple of games. How do you think Houston being out on the field will help Aidan Hutchinson, if any, continue this hot streak that he's on, Matt?
Yeah, it could help a ton. It could help a ton if he's able to produce, even if he can't get home on a sack. If he's healthy and providing that spark coming from the opposite side of Aidan Hutchinson, that's that much more focused. That a good offensive line, especially with Tristan Wirfs over there at left tackle for the Bucs, that's that much more pressure, much more athleticism that they have to worry about on the blind side of Baker Mayfield, while Aidan Hutchinson is coming from the right side. They have been moving Aidan around a lot more the last couple weeks, and I expect that to be the same. So there's going to be pass rush all over the place, but having a weapon like that, having a game plan against that coming from the other side, it creates a lot, not just for Aidan Hutchinson too, but for the safety group, these cornerbacks that have been blitzing. That's been part of the new and improved game plan of Aaron Glenn, bringing this blitz from multiple areas of the defense. Now that you have a pass rusher like Houston on the opposite side, you can start bringing safeties over, Ife Melifonwu, Ceedy, Duce, Brian Branch, over from that opposite side, maybe next to Aidan Hutchinson, who where they're going to double team him. You can't do that as often or as well anymore if there are more players coming from his side. So basically, just having a weapon like that makes it that much more confusing for a good offensive line and a Lions defense that needs to get pressure on Baker Mayfield, force some mistakes.
Do you have a sack prediction for Aidan Hutchinson's sack count today?
I think he has 2.
Okay.
And that's a lot. I mean, it could be one of the games where he's been hot. He's been getting home. He's been finishing these pressures these last couple of weeks, and it's really been helping the team. It could be one of those, especially if James Houston's more healthy than we think. It could be a 3-sack game, but I do think he's going to get home. I believe 2. He's at least going to get 1. But when he's going up against Luke Gedeke, the right tackle for the Bucs, it's an opportunity for him, not just away from Tristan Wirfs, but to take advantage of a veteran right tackle who's good, but has been known to give up some pressures. I believe 42 pressures this season. He's given up 6 sacks. It's an opportunity for Aidan to really get home on Baker.
Josh from Detroit says 3 sacks for Hutch. So get in the chat, and we want to hear how many sacks you think Aidan Hutchinson will have today. We'll shout some of you guys out as we continue along. Huge storyline coming out of this game. Against the last matchup of the Lions playing the Bucs, playing them in Tampa Bay when they were wearing their creamsicles, which is the biggest storyline of that game. What I also have to point out, and what so many are pointing out coming into this game, is yes, there's a reason to be nervous about Baker Mayfield and his playoff run that he's having and his performance towards the end of this season and how much he's grown since the Lions have last faced them, but also how much healthier the Lions are going into today's game. Obviously, we're talking about Houston rejoining them, but also the other pieces that were missing from that game in Tampa Bay. There was not a healthy offensive line, and we know how important that is to a Lions victory. Talk about those other pieces that are going to be joining them out on the field today.
Yes. It seems like, especially both fan bases, think they have 2 brand new teams coming out on the field this game here this Sunday. For the Lions, they were without Jonah Jackson. They were without Jahmyr Gibbs, their star rookie running back. David Montgomery had a rib injury early in the second quarter and wasn't really himself in that first quarter anyway. So those are 3 massive, massive pieces to this offense. Let's not forget Ceedy Duce on the defense. He wasn't there. There were more pieces missed. Josh Paschal, I think. Sam Laporta was questionable, and Levante David played really well on Sam Laporta, really not allowing him to be a difference maker. It was one of these games where Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I'm going to throw Craig Reynolds into the mix. They really stepped up. Craig Reynolds doesn't get a lot of credit, but he's, if not the best pass protection running back on the team, up there with David Montgomery, and what he was able to do to help Jared Goff get time when the Bucs defense was their blitz happy. Jared Goff was able to counter that and have a really strong game without a healthy offensive line, without a run game. So that was impressive. But on the other side, there are Bucs too that they're healthy, they're coming back, and they have young players that have emerged since that game. Whether it's Kalijah Kancey, who was someone that the Detroit Lions, I know I was thinking Kalijah Kancey might be a fit there for the Lions at 18. I'm super happy with Jack Campbell, but that was talks around draft time. Yaya Diaby, one of their defensive linemen. I think he's technically an edge rusher, a defensive end, but they have some really talented young interior linemen that pair really well with the linebackers, the athletic veteran linebackers that this Tampa Bay Bucs team. So long story short, there are a lot of players coming back for both teams where this is almost a brand new matchup. Yeah. We're going to see a lot of new things from both teams, although the skeleton, the meat and bones of their identity are there, and it follows the quarterbacks.
And I really have to point out, you said Gibbs and Montgomery going out in that game, Gibbs not being in that game. So you have those two players that were not in it and able to bring what they could individually, but that also means that the Bucs have not played against the two-headed monster and that thunder and lightning that everyone has talked about. They're not going to really, obviously they can watch tape, but they haven't physically gone up against that kind of attack and what could come from Ben Johnson calling up those plays and really utilizing those two as that dual-edged weapon.
Yeah. Led by Vita Vea, which is the big boy right in the middle, the defensive tackle, the nose tackle, whatever you want to call him. He really provides that stuffing force in the middle that just clogs up the center of the pocket for Jared Goff or the running back. I think the most important thing is they prevent Vita Vea, prevent Cansey and Yaya Diaby and Hall from getting pressure up the middle, kind of like we talked about last week with Aaron Donald and Kobe Turner and Byron Young. When Jared Goff gets pressure up the middle, it's harder for him. You can't step up in the pocket, and he's not the most mobile quarterback to be able to move laterally. So Frank Ragnow, Jonah Jackson, Graham Glasgow, maybe if Colby Sorsdale or Yode's in there, preventing those guys from getting a push up front is going to be everything, keeping Jared Goff clean so he can make throws without pressure. But if they can develop that run game like you were alluding to with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, or at least trick or get their offense into mismatches with this defense with Montgomery or Gibbs, maybe catching more passes out of the flats to keep the linebackers from really going all out blitz at Jared Goff. This is where Ben Johnson is going to show really what he's worth. I think he's going to shine today, being able to devise a plan that keeps them off balance, but not avoiding the run. You can't just avoid Vita Vea. You got to go at him, whether that's Montgomery or Gibbs. But what you got to do is just make sure that defense is off balance. You can't do it every time. You got to mix it up. And I'm fully confident that that's what Ben Johnson can do.
No doubt. We're going to get into more of those key matchups in the next segment. So stick with us, and we'll be right back here on the corner of Woodward and Main Street.
Join Woodward Sports' own Jeff Iafrate along with special WSN guests for the most anticipated Lions season in decades. Filled with different surprises and expert analysis. You're not going to want to miss out. Go to our Woodward Sports YouTube channel on Sundays and tune in live from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. Now, coming to Woodward Sports, Woodward and Main Street, the Woodward Sports Network Detroit Lions show. Let's go! Catch Gabrielle Dee Phillips, Matt Broder, and Terry Foster for all the latest news on your Detroit Lions every week. Only on the Woodward Sports Network YouTube channel and woodwardsports.com.
Stop searching for a vehicle and start finding one. Les Stanford Chevrolet Cadillac makes it easy. We harness the power of multiple dealerships and own the biggest selection of GM brands in the area to get you the car you need. With the Les Stanford Group, you'll have access to 4 different dealerships, providing you with more makes, more models, and more choices. We're connected to more than 1,000 vehicles. And with so many high-quality CPO vehicles available, you'll find new car quality at pre-owned prices. You can start and end your search at lesstanford.com today.
Brace yourselves, Detroit. As the sun begins to set, 2 of Woodward Sports' brightest young stars will be taking the mic for a brand new show. Woodward Nights with Broder and Broder. The dog days in Detroit are over, and the boys are unleashed. Join in on the banter and hop on the bandwagon of the #1 night show on the internet. Tune into the Woodward Sports YouTube channel every weeknight from 8 to 10 p.m. Woodward Nights with Broder and Broder.
Welcome back to Woodward and Main Street, your Woodward Sports Insider Show here on Woodward Sports Network. I'm Gabrielle Dee Phillips, alongside me, Matt Broder, and we now have Terry Foster joining us on the phones live from Los Angeles, where he is at today, which we have to get into because, Terry, you traveled all the way back to Los Angeles to kind of get the Los Angeles fans in check. How's it going out there?
It's going. I'm interested in getting my daughter moved into her new apartment. But Matt, you mentioned the word Colby Sorsdale. Dude, if you have to mention his name for the Lions to do something well, they're in big trouble, pal.
Yeah, well, I don't expect him to be out there too often, but if he comes and gives Jonah Jackson or Graham Glasgow a blow, it would be him or Yodi. You coming at me this early, Terry?
Hot off the phone.
I don't want to see him on, dude. I don't want to see him on the field.
Fair. How is it out there in LA?
It's rainy, but it's not 17 degrees or 2 degrees or whatever it is there. But you know, it was fun. But I had a little I don't know what we'll call it, an incident, but it showed that the Lions are officially America's team. When we were flying out yesterday, the pilot got on and said he is not a Lions fan. His team didn't make the playoffs, but he wished the Lions good luck. And there's been a lot of talk outside of Michigan about the Detroit Lions. And then a online betting site said that over half the nation is rooting for the Lions to win the Super Bowl.
It's crazy.
So they are America's team.
You've confirmed that the Lions are now America's team.
Yeah, I said that a few weeks ago. Now, other people are saying, hey, you know what? The Lions might be America's team. They are. Now the Dallas Cowboys are out. Mm-hmm. I think people have gravitated toward the Lions. They love Dan Campbell. They love what this team is all about. It's not a flash and dash team, although they can do that. These guys are about being tough. And any overweight fat guy out there who's balding wants to play for the Detroit Lions. Of course, the Lions don't want that person, but it just shows that people are just gung-ho about this team. And I think this is a good sign. People always say, well, people don't around the nation don't like the Lions. Well, maybe that's in the past. Right now, people are loving the Lions, and I was looking at this map. The Lions are favored in states like Nevada, Arizona.
Really?
The Lions are sweeping. Yeah, they're sweeping every state in the Southeast except for Florida. Of course, you know why, because Tampa Bay is in Florida. But other than that, people are rooting for this team. Even the goofballs in Ohio are rooting for the Lions.
But what about Minnesota and Los Angeles? Are those two states, I guess I should say California, are those two states rooting for the Lions, or are they still a little salty?
Well, definitely. California, well, who do you think they're rooting for in California, young man?
You know,
49ers.
The Acai Bowls. Yeah, the Lions, yes. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, they're rooting for the 49ers, but surrounding states are like, nah, they're for the Lions. And the Baltimore Ravens have a few states, but for the most part, people love the Detroit Lions. Mm-hmm. This is another reason why this team is different. People used to, shake when you mentioned the Detroit Lions. I want nothing to do with them. I don't want them on Thanksgiving. I don't want to see this team. Now the networks can't get enough of them.
Exactly.
And we see why now.
We can't get enough of you in California. I know you have some big game day plans today, and you might be sporting some Lions gear, I'm hearing through the grapevine. What are your game day plans, and what gear are you going to be wearing today?
I am, for the first time in my life, I'm going to go to a sports bar, and I'm going to wear my little Lions sweatshirt. I'm going to the Blue Dog Beer Cafe, or whatever the name of it is, but I'm going to see I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of Lion fans. I'm told there's going to be some there. So I'm going to watch the game. I am not a cheerer. I don't yell and scream. But if the shots start flowing, you never know what might happen. So I'm going to do that. I'm looking forward to it. And, if I hear a little sampling of people talking about the Lions even out here unsolicited. So that's how big they are. And even in the town of Los Angeles who doesn't care about anything, you still hear some rumblings about the Detroit Lions.
So this is as close as
America's
you'll probably
team, I'm telling you.
ever get to being a Lions fan, Terry. So you're coming out to Los Angeles to be a Lions fan today, right?
Yes, that's it.
Love it. Well, we're sad that you're not here with us to be that Lions fan.
I'd rather be there. I'd rather be there with all the people because I'm sure it's going to be fun. And I got to hang out with them the last couple of weeks. And so, yeah, it's going to be fun. The only bad part about, the Lions possibly beating Tampa and than beating LA Rams is when you leave that building or you leave the bar, whatever. It's so cold outside. Why can't it be 50 degrees at least?
That's a hope. Well, you get to enjoy that today. We're going to get into some of the key matchups in this segment, Terry, and we want to get your thoughts. Earlier in the show, we talked about CJ Gardner-Johnson kind of calling out Baker Mayfield. What do you make of the situation, and do you think that this is going to give Baker Mayfield more fire, or is this just, some friendly fire back and forth for both sides?
Okay, I have a philosophy in sports. I don't like noise. And with CJ Gardner-Johnson, I'm sure when he said it at the time, he's probably thinking, we're not going to play Tampa anyway, so I can say whatever I want. But now it's kind of lingered, and to me it's like a bad fart that's lingering in the room, and you try to ignore it, but it's still there. So I think it will motivate Baker Mayfield. I think it motivate his teammates. They like him. They may not think he's the best quarterback, but that's their guy. He's a leader on that team. He's one of those guys that's going to, knock down the front door if he can. So I think this will motivate Tampa. And if Tampa beats the Lions, I am sure we're going to hear, Lions disrespected our quarterback, and we can't let that happen. So I think it's more than just friendly fire. I do think it's going to be a motivant, but bottom line, the Lions are better than Tampa, and they should win this game.
Terry, on the flip side, could it help the Detroit Lions, or at least have the team rally around C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Ceedy, Duce?
No, I don't think so. I think it's more, he's in the secondary. He's not the quarterback. It's just, there's just something about when you attack somebody's quarterback, people get all riled up and everything, but I don't think this is going to get the Lions fired up.
Terry, you even managed to shut down Matt, even from across the country.
Shots fired.
But he's still a good guy, and I only shut down the ones I love.
Exactly. So let's get into these matchups. We kind of talked about Ragnow, Jackson, and Glasgow and what they have to do to neutralize the Bucs today. What do you think, Terry, is the key for this offensive line going into this game?
One word: toe. How is Frank Ragnow's toe? That's the only thing I worry about. Is because Jonah Jackson, if he's in there, he's been great. These guys we don't talk about, and maybe we should give him a game ball one day. But it seems like if Ragnow's toe is good, that offensive line is really good, and it's been holding up the last few weeks. So we know what Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell are going to do, but the pressure could be coming up the middle, and so I just worry about Ragnow's toe, and I just want to see Jonah Jackson in the lineup, because when Jonah Jackson is in the lineup, that's an entirely different team. And they run the ball better, pass protection is better, and he doesn't get enough credit for what he does. But when I've been talking to some of the linemen, they love him. They understand how important he is, and I was ask him some fun questions. If they had to be in a tag team matchup, and I know that is fake, but if we thought professional wrestling was real, who do you want as your tag team partner? And everybody said Jonah Jackson. So, he must be a little bit nuts and be ready to go and pile drive him to the mat.
Art in the chat says Ragnow's toe checked in as eligible. So that's the call for today.
Reported.
I know.
Now, Matt, I know you talked about the pressure up the middle going into today's game and stopping that. Can you get into a little bit more about that and why that is so important?
Yeah, and we touched on it earlier, but when there's pressure coming up the middle, Jared Goff doesn't have anywhere to move forward. He can't step into his throws. He can't move up in the pocket when there's pressure coming from the outsides, whether that's Levante David or Devin White or Yaya Diaby. So keeping them at bay not only helps the run game, but it keeps the big boys out of Jared Goff's face and allows him to see the defense and make quick reads. So it's going to be huge neutralizing those guys, not just in the pass game, but in the run game too.
Yeah, you know the other thing that Goff doesn't have? He doesn't have that white boy wiggle, so you can't get away from it. So Matthew Stafford has the little white boy wiggle, so he can kind of extend plays when there's pressure up the middle. But Jared Goff, man, when that pocket collapses, he's a sitting duck.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Their rush defense, especially led by those three guys or those guys in the middle, has been very strong. But they haven't been able to close or complete in the pass rush. They're more near the bottom of the NFL in that aspect. So, again, it's just another reinforcement that this offensive line needs to have a big game, and if they do, it just sets up everything for Goff in that offense, and I'm much more confident, especially with them all being healthy.
One more matchup that I want to get into before we close out the segment is the Lions backfield versus Antoine Winfield Jr. We've talked about the Lions backfield a lot and needing to improve that throughout the season. We started to see more of that come out. How are you feeling about the Lions backfield going into this game against the Bucs today, Terry?
Here's what I would say. Which receiver is going to get 200 yards passing on them in reception? My bet is on Mike Evans. This should be a Las Vegas bet because you know somebody's going to go off on the Lions. You pick a receiver. Who do you have, Matt? Going to get 200 yards receiving off the Lions today?
It would be Mike Evans.
Yeah.
It's Edwin's, Godwin, or Trey Palmer. It's got to be Evans.
Okay, so I think what you have to do is try to limit everybody else. Somebody's going to go off on them. Maybe it won't be 200 yards. I mean, I hope I don't get in trouble, but Baker Mayfield is not as good as Matthew Stafford.
No.
So if that's going to get the Bucs people all fired up, then that's fine. He is I think he plays better than many people give him credit for, but the bottom line is he's vulnerable to the big mistake. He's like the golfer that can hit a 350-yard drive, but he now and then he says, I'm going to hit this sucker 370 yards, and then he gets into the draft, into the rough or a sand trap or something like that. That's what gets him in trouble when he just tries to do too much. So he must stay within himself, and that's going to give Tampa a better shot. But he's a gunslinger. He likes to jump off the top rope, so that's his game, and you can't alter that.
You put Terry in LA where they have nicer weather, and you're already talking about golf rather than talking about football. The Lions are still playing football, Terry. We're still talking about football here, not golf.
Well, if the Lions lose, they will be playing golf.
We're not talking about that yet because they are still in the playoffs. What are your thoughts, Matt, on Terry's take on the situation?
Yeah, I agree with him, especially from the defensive perspective. The formula recently is let one wide receiver go off and control everything else or contain everybody else. And it's worked. And especially in that first game, although not one wide receiver really went off, Baker did miss a couple throws that if caught or if the momentum of that game would have been shifted, would have been a lot closer at the end of the game. I remember one to Trey Palmer that was probably going to go for a touchdown. So a 20-6 game is a lot closer. So they got to make sure that they limit everyone else. If Mike Evans goes off, limit everyone else. Cade Otton, their tight end, he's been playing well. You just can't let anyone else do too much. You got to shut down Rachaad White in that run game. But I want to go back to one thing real quick. You were talking about Antoine Winfield, Gabby, and while when we're talking about the running backs, you could put him up against the defensive line or linebackers. But I wanted to highlight Antoine Winfield because he plays all over the place for the Bucs, and he lines up in the box a lot. You sort of don't know who he's going to cover. He's been one of four. Listen to this stat. One of four players since 2000 with 5 or more sacks, 5 or more takeaways, 5 or more fumbles, forced fumbles in a single season. The other 3 are, I think, at minimum about 6'6", 275 pounds. TJ Watt, Terrell Suggs, and Justin Tuck. So this little man is not afraid to get in there and cause some disruption with some of the bigger players. Not only that, he's a great coverage safety too. So Antoine Winfield's not someone to look past, especially in the run game, or at least covering those running backs out of the backfield. And the last little point, because it's so important to us here in Detroit, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Antoine Winfield was snubbed of a Pro Bowl spot, but somehow managed. Actually, he was somehow snubbed of a Pro Bowl spot, but was named first-team All-Pro. He's that good of a defensive back, that good of a safety. He's not a player that the Lions offense can look past.
No, that is correct. Now, I have something that I want to present. Here's, I'm going to help Ben Johnson. Every time the Lions have an important drive, you have to go to Amon-Ra St. Brown at least once.
Yes, sir.
Do not ignore this man, because nobody stops him. If it's 3rd and 8, go to him every time, because he's going to get that first down, and you're going to keep moving the chains. So that is a philosophy that I would have. You always go with him. Now, here is a question I ask Matthew every week when we're just kind of shooting the breeze. Matt, give me all the running backs that have rushed for 100 yards excuse me, against the Lions this year.
0.0.
Yeah.
There have been none.
I know, this is where you get real silent and says, I can't think of anybody. But that, we make fun of them because they give up 150, 200 yards against a wide receiver. They give up a lot of passing yards. But in those games, you look at, they're only giving up 20 points. If you're giving up 20 points, I don't care if the other team gets 900 yards against you. You're doing your job as a defense. And the other thing that we keep ignoring is it's not important. People don't run against the Detroit Lions. Mm-hmm. If somebody gets a 5-yard gain, I'm amazed. I'm like, whoa, boy, they must have really played well on that play. But, basically you get 2-3 yards or there's a big play defensively where, somebody loses 3 yards. But, the NFL is almost like college football. Yes, everybody's trying to pass and everything, but coaches want to establish a run. And then you don't establish a run against the Detroit Lions, which means when it's time to pass, this Lions team can tee off on people. Probably should be getting a few more sacks, but they're putting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. That's what makes the Detroit Lions dangerous against everybody. And when you look at the playoffs, everybody's got a shot. Green Bay had a shot. Houston had a shot. There's no blowout, so don't want to look past Tampa because there's a fine ball club. But if the Lions win this game, they should have a shot, even though they're playing in San Jose against the Niners.
Well, I hope that we have a shot that you'll stick with us in this next segment to cover pessimistic, optimistic, and our game score predictions. Stick with us, and we'll round it out here on Woodward and Main Street.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Feel alive during Feldman Chevrolet's biggest New Year's sales event ever. Get the best prices on our huge selection of award-winning Chevrolets. Like this 2024 Equinox for $188 per month. Or this 2024 Silverado for $268 per month. It's the New Year's sales event going on now at Feldman Chevrolet, Michigan's #1 Chevy dealer.
Join Woodward Sports' own Jeff Iafrate along with special WSN guests for the most anticipated Lions season in decades. Filled with different surprises and expert analysis. You're not going to want to miss out. Go to our Woodward Sports YouTube channel on Sundays and tune in live from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. Woodward Sports' own Tom Mazaway and Sam Stick Day will be hosting our Lions postgame show after every Lions game all season long. Tune into the Woodward Sports YouTube channel for his hot-off-the-press takes, game analysis, and Kool-Aid sipping celebrations. You won't want to miss it. Join Maz, Stick, and special guests each week immediately following every Lions game, exclusively on the WSN YouTube channel.
Come to any Lady Jane's Haircuts for Men for an award-winning haircut experience from one of our talented stylists and register for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to win an all-expenses-paid suite for the 2024 NCAA tournament for you and 5 of your best buds. That's right, college basketball's most elite event. You and your 5 best friends just get to any Lady Jane's today for an award-winning haircut experience and automatically register to win the trip of your dreams. Lady Jane's Haircuts for Men open 7 days a week. Walk in anytime. Lady Jane's, it's wicked awesome.
Welcome back. This is Woodward and Main Street, your Lions Insider Show here on Woodward Sports Network. I'm Gabrielle Dee Phillips. Alongside me, Matt Broder. We have Terry Foster with us on the phone out in Los Angeles. Thanks for sticking with us all game day morning and kicking off your Lions' second home playoff game with us. What an honor. What an honor.
What a great time to be alive. What a great time to be a Lions fan. Lions fans.
And what a great time to be a Lions fan, Terry, right? Because you're going to be a Lions fan today.
Yeah, how about that? This is amazing. I'm sure people don't believe me. Oh, he's lying. I'll send pictures. How about that?
Please do, so we can keep the Woodward and Main Street fans abreast of all that's going on out in Los Angeles with you. We're going to get right into it with the pessimistic, optimistic, and game score predictions. So, Terry, can you kick us off with your reason to be pessimistic for today's game?
That the words of C.J. Gardner-Johnson resonate real in that Tampa locker room. And not only Baker Mayfield has the game of his life, but his teammates rally around him and just play lights out. Mm-hmm. So that's the only reason that I could be pessimistic about this game, that it just fires up the team. But it shouldn't do that. But, you know, sports is about emotion, and, you know, you dog my boy, and teammates can rally around that because they do love Baker Mayfield.
They do.
What is your reason to be pessimistic today, Matt?
My reason is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' strengths, both on offense and defense, are the Lions' weaknesses.
Yeah.
That wide receiver group, Mike Evans, Godwin, Trey Palmer, Kate Otten, their tight end, they're very, very talented. Mike Evans is a future Hall of Famer. He also snubbed Amon-Ra St. Brown of a Pro Bowl spot, but I won't go back to that. They're very talented, and we've seen the Lions give up a lot of yards, a lot of passing yards, receiving yards to the top wide receivers on opposing teams. And on the flip side, although Jared Goff has been much, much better at handling pressure in these last couple weeks, you got to say that is the weakness of this Lions offense. When a blitz-heavy team is able to get pressure on their quarterback, that's when turnovers happen. That's when they start to struggle. So if there's a reason to be pessimistic, it's because the strength and the weaknesses match up unfavorably for the Lions.
I'm going to go to something a little bit similar to Terry's with my pessimistic, and I mentioned it at the beginning of the show. It's that the Lions work best when they're working against everyone, when it's that Detroit versus everyone mentality. And this week, the media and the analysts are going with Detroit, and they are favored going into this game. So is that going to go to the Lions' head? Are they going to maybe look at their past game against the Bucs and say, we kicked their butts, so are we going to ease off the gas pedal a little bit? My hope is that they won't, because they still have a lot to prove, and there's still a lot to prove at Ford Field, and still history to be made. We talked a lot about that history last week, and it's kind of slipped off the radar this week, but to win 2 playoff games at Ford Field is history in the making, so you can't forget that and have to keep the foot on the gas.
I know I agree with you about the motivational part, but I think the thing that the Lion players, and I think this is legit, they understand the history of the Lions. They understand where the fans are coming from, and I really think they want to win this for the fans. Mm-hmm. Now, I was a little bit, shall we say, cheesed because last week after the L.A. Rams game, the narrative came out of the locker room that the players are trying to win it for Jared Goff. Mm-hmm. The only reason that narrative came out is because there's a lot of TV people, and they gave players leading questions. So let's say that in the locker room, and the TV person will go up and says, "Hey, you really wanted to win this for Jared Goff, right?" What's the player going to say? Nah, we don't want to win it for him. Blah, blah. So that's the leading question. Just say, because I think players were talking about the fans, and some TV goof will go up and say, well, you want to win this for Jared Goff, right? So that's the leading question. And I don't think the correct narrative came out of that dressing room, because it was something that reporters were looking for. I'm sure their assignment editors told them that this is the story we're looking for, and that they forced a story that wasn't there. I think and I'll go to my grave thinking this, that dressing room or those players really want to win this for the fans. And I think the driving force behind that is Dan Campbell. Mm-hmm. Dan Campbell played, well, he didn't play that year, but he was on the team that went 0-16. And he knows what's going on. He knows it, and he pushes that narrative to the players. And I think their motivation is they want to win this for the city of Detroit. When teams say this, usually I don't believe it. This time I do.
You sound pretty optimistic, Terry. What is your optimism for today's game? Is it that the Lions are being led by Dan Campbell, or do you have something else to add on to that?
I have something else to add on. I think this is a tailor-made game for St. Brown to shine. When the Lions were trying to run out the clock against the Rams, normally teams just run the ball and try to run the clock down. But they saw the need that Los Angeles was gearing up for the run, and so they went to St. Brown. And I think now, of course, they kind of realized. I think now they realize if they get into any type of trouble, go to St. Brown. Or even if you're not in trouble, go to St. Brown. I think they're going to wise up and say, this guy's unstoppable. If it's 3rd and 8, you're going to go to St. Brown. But I think now they're going to go to him in more situations and just, just run with this guy.
TPMD in the chat says the sun is out today, which I think is a great sign for the sun god because it's time for him to shine. Matt, what is your optimism for today?
I like that, time to shine. And just to go back to that real quick, the Bucs, I think, are one of the bottom 3 teams in the league at giving up yards to tight ends. And like Terry likes to say, St. Brown is the smallest tight end in NFL history. He can do it all. He spends a lot of time in the middle of that field. So Terry, I'm with you on St. Brown, and just a little added addition. He's going to have some space in the middle of that field.
Yeah, he should. I mean,
no, go ahead.
But here's the thing about him. I want to throw this in.
Yeah.
He is a smart player. When you zero in on him, he knows what the defense is trying to do. Mm-hmm. He, not the fastest guy in the world, but he knows how to get into areas that are open. He knows what the defense is trying to do, and then he counters that. So you've got a thinking man out there. He's very cerebral. He's very poised. He's not afraid of anything. And, this guy, to me, is special.
He definitely is. I'm excited. I'm hopeful.
Show it today.
Hopeful that the Lions are going to build around him for the future. My reason for being optimistic in this game, it's going to go back to the fans, but I'm going to tie it to that Detroit Lions defense. I think this is another game where the fans show up. I do expect it to be louder, but I also expect these fans to give this defense the boost of energy they need to get a key takeaway, to get a key sack, really help Aidan Hutchinson continue the run he's on. They're going to need to get to Baker Mayfield, and getting pressure, confusing him, throwing him off his game is going to be everything. So then when the Bucs get into the red zone, whenever that happens, that's when this Lions defense tightens up, plays their best defense, and keeps them out of the end zone. The Bucs have a really good field goal kicker, extra point kicker. We'll throw that in because extra points aren't a given anymore. But Chase McLaughlin, he's been pretty money on the season. I think only missing 2 field goals that were blocked. So they're going to need, just like the Rams game, try to limit them to field goals versus touchdowns, come up with a big takeaway when needed, a big sack when needed. That all ties back to this fans and the energy that they can give a defense when they need it.
The fans know a lot is on the line because this is the last home game this season. So you have to show out all the energy that you have. You have nothing to save for next week because if the Lions win, they're going to play the 49ers. They're going to be away. So this is the last time to take over, last time to really show out as the Lions fans have done all season. And you see the energy that it gives this team time and time again. I love that reason to be optimistic. I'm also going to throw in there an additional point that we talked about earlier in the show, and that is the health of the Lions, the health of this offensive line. I think they have a lot to prove in this game. Obviously, they neutralized a lot last week. But I think the health of the Lions, the health of that two-headed monster, they're going into this game looking a lot different than when they took on the Bucs previously. And I think there's also just so much more certainty around this game and knowing, okay, these are the pieces that we're going to have, these are the pieces that we're not. Sam Laporta, he's still listed as questionable, but there's a higher chance that we'll see him out again on the field this week as we saw him last week. So I think there's just so much more health behind the Lions that people aren't worried about those key pieces being missing against the Bucs. And that's going to lead us right into our game score predictions. So drum roll, please. And there you have it. Boom. Lions v. Bucs. I am going a Lions win 24-21. Matt, what is your game score prediction that you have up there?
My game score prediction is if you could hit the like button in YouTube, that would be so much appreciated. Thanks for all 863 of you in here watching. Everyone who's been watching. It's been so great. I'm predicting a 31-27 Lions victory. I think I said this on Woodward Nights on Friday. I think Jared Goff gets 3 touchdowns, a rushing touchdown from David Montgomery. Then that must mean that Michael Badgley kicks a field goal as well. The defense is going to need to come up big. They're going to make some key stops at the end of the game because Baker's going to give them everything that they can handle on the little comeback there. But I believe that the Lions, Jared Goff, they're going to have the ball in their hands in victory formation at the end of the game. Whether that's 2 minutes to go, 1 minute, however it is, they're going to have the ball.
Way to say it. Are you superstitious? Because you said that last time, too.
I did.
Yeah, this dude loves victory formations. Is that your favorite play?
Yes, it is.
I'd have to agree.
It says so much. Not only does it just signify, a win, but when you have the ball at the end of the game, that means that the other team, literally the other team doesn't have a chance to take any more shots to come back. So this Lions team, and really, it started in their first game. It was in the fourth quarter. They had a 6-minute, 52-second drive. They ended up giving the ball back to the Bucs, but making a quick stop and getting the ball back. They know how to eat up clock at the end of the game, and I think that's going to be key, especially in the playoffs, not giving that opposing team their one more shot. That's why victory formation is so important. You got the ball at the end of the game. It means the other team doesn't.
All right, Terry, hit us with your score prediction.
Mr. K-Line.
Say it one more time, Terry.
I forget what it was. I think it was 27-17.
Yes, it is. You have the highest difference of any of us.
Yeah, I just think the Lions are going to take care of business. I keep waiting for them just to smash somebody, and I think we're going to hear a lot about Tampa and how dangerous they are, but I think the Lions are going to take care of business. Don't look ahead towards San Francisco, but I got a magic number.
Yeah.
As you always do.
132. You know what that is?
No.
That's the highest decibel level the Lions fans got at Ford Field last week. Try to beat 132.
It's about to happen.
Key. It's key because it is all great today down at Ford Field. We will be back here on Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. to hopefully talk about a Lions win, because it is so much better to talk about a Lions win here on Woodward and Main Street. Thank you for kicking off your game day with us. I'm Gabrielle Dee Phillips, Matt Broder, Terry Foster on the phone, joining us all the way from Los Angeles. It's time to get loud, Detroit. Have a fantastic game day and go Lions.
Now, coming to Woodward Sports, Woodward and Main Street, the Woodward Sports Network Detroit Lions show. Let's go! Catch Gabrielle Dee Phillips, Matt Broder, and Terry Foster for all the latest news on your Detroit Lions every week. Only on the Woodward Sports Network YouTube channel and woodwardsports.com.